Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
As the Tories enjoy tonight the annual gossip and booze fest that is party conference season, one thing is clear enough. When Theresa May says Brexit means Brexit, what she actually means is that it means exactly what she wants it to mean. She won't be consulting MPs, she won't be asking peers for their views, she's not going to put the final deal to another referendum, a general election, or even necessarily a parliamentary vote. So is that all a bit undemocratic, or does it smack of firm leadership? And most importantly, what does it mean for all of us? Ever since the vote came in, we've been told
Brexit means Brexit.
So, what on earth does it mean?
Simply, it means leaving the European Union.
Well, indeed. The Prime Minister says we voted to control immigration. Some of her MPs and ministers, like her Chancellor, say we voted to leave the EU but stay in the single market. Most of the Brexiteers say we voted to leave the single market too, despite the fact that business leaders claim it would cost many of us our jobs. In one sense, what we voted for was incredibly specific, in another extraordinarily vague. So who gets to decide what we did mean? It seems one woman, Theresa May. But at least we voted for her. Oh, hang on a minute. OK, Nick, maybe we can begin with you. Is she right to just take a firm grip on it? Should she be consulting Parliament more? What do you think is the right way?
So I think if those who advocated Brexit before the 23rd of June had told us what they meant, in other words, hadn't just said we want to leave the European Union, but we want to leave the European Union because we want XYZ arrangement, I don't know, in the single market, but clamping down on freedom of movement or whatever arrangement you want, because there are lots of models of Brexit, then they would have had a mandate after that referendum to just ram it through. The fact that we voted as a country for Brexit without, apparently, the Brexiteers having the faintest clue what it means, I think suggests that it is essential that Parliament plays its constitutional role in actually scrutinising what the government means when they finally make up their own minds. So I think, I think as a matter of principle, yes, we're going to leave the European Union, but no, I don't think the government should do that without any say-so from Parliament.
Julia, Jane, you want to pitch in here on whether Parliament should be having a say, and if so, how and when and why?
I'm all for parliamentary scrutiny. It's absolutely vital to make sure legislation that goes through is not completely balmy. However, Parliament, there was a manifesto pledge from the Tories, they would have a referendum. We finally got it. There was a Parliament vote, 6-1 MPs voted that they would give the decision to the British people. British people voted 52-48. The government has a mandate to enact this. We had a leaflet paid for by British taxpayers. Everyone watching here paid for £9 million worth of a leaflet, which said, in very small writing, the government will implement your decision. That's what the government's doing. They've got a mandate for it. Now we're told, oh, well, it wasn't a legal vote, it was advisory. Oh, it's about parliamentary democracy. All the people who are so concerned about parliamentary democracy right now didn't appear to have been concerned about it for the last 10, 20 years, when they were quite happily handing over powers to Brussels all of the time without our say-so.
Well, Jane, maybe, do you think what we voted for is clear?
Yeah, I think the public are very clear on what they voted for, and that was that we are to leave the European Union. Now that, is obviously a very big statement, and there are complexities within that. This is years and years and years of being a member of the EU that has to be unpicked like a tiny little tapestry. And I don't think anybody would want a Prime Minister who just sort of engages in hyperbole and gives a sort of a running commentary on something and then takes it back again the following week. I think she's playing it very well. I think it's just as and when they discuss each thing, she talks about it and then she says, right, I'm not going to give a running commentary now until I've got something else important to say. This is a complex issue, and why do we want somebody that's going to rush into it? I just don't, it needs to be considered and measured approach, and I'm sure that half of the people in government weren't expecting this result. So they've
You mean all the people in government?
Well, all of the people in government. And, the Labour heartlands, which is pretty much the people that voted for Brexit, are very clear what they want. They do not want us to be in the EU anymore, and they expect them to unpick it and get us out.
Alistair, whose job is it, in your view, to take us through these? I mean, Jane talks about, it's a simple decision, but it now takes us into a complex world. Whose job is it to take us through those complexities? Is it the Prime Minister's alone, the Cabinet, Parliament?
The Prime Minister has to lead it. And, she's the most powerful person. She leads the government now. I mean, as you said in your introduction, she wasn't elected, but she does have the mandate to lead the government. But there's a lot that flows from this that actually I think there'll be so many complicated issues are going to arise that weren't even raised during the referendum. And the idea that when they suddenly pop up, that Parliament should not be having some sort of say, that she wouldn't, and also I don't think she will consult Parliament at various points. I actually think this reform of the Great Repeal, whatever she's calling it, the Great Repeal Act, I think that is her way of saying Parliament will be involved at some stage. But I think that we're not even at the beginning of the complicated part of the process.
Do you think Parliament should have a say on the final deal? I mean, it may be academic by then because we've triggered Article 50 and we've got to the end of the process. But do you think she should be saying Parliament should have a say to trigger Article 50? Do you think definitely not? And
No, I think on that, the process is that, as Judy said, the public spoke. I don't necessarily think they were clear. I think there are so many different things that people were saying this was about. No, you can shake your head, Julie, but loads of people voted because they did believe the stuff that 350 million quid's going to go to the health service.
Yes, all Leave voters are just we're all really stupid.
No, I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm not saying you're stupid. Well, I'm not saying you're stupid. But I am saying...
Easy.
People,
we've only just got started.
No, but seriously,
misinformation came out from the Remain campaign, not the Leave campaign.
You say that you meet all these people who are very, very clear. I meet loads of people who say, actually, this is not what I thought was going to happen.
Are you very clear what Remain would have meant and what the future of the EU is, the EU army, the issues over whether it's austerity, what the Hungarian referendum has been about? The EU is a changing, evolving organisation. And we didn't know what was going to happen to the EU. The future, we don't know.
Listen, can I focus this down just a little minute? Because the one thing that you can agree probably everyone was a bit uncertain on is whether we were going to go out the single market or not. If we stay in the single market, then that's one thing. If we go out, that is a big thing. Now,
by the way,
I never thought we could possibly...
It's in the Tory manifesto that we stay in the single market. That's another thing keeps being overlooked. They fought on a platform...
Are you the only person who reads the Tory manifesto?
I'm sorry, but it is in there.
I don't think the Tories did. I don't ever see how it was possible to stay within the single market where that involves, by definition, the freedom of movement of people across different countries, given that was a clear statement from the British people.
When you say it involves by definition, that's not necessarily because they could cut us some slack, couldn't they? They could say...
They were not in the single market.
You may have thought that, but Boris Johnson said repeatedly during the referendum campaign, as the lead spokesperson, the public looked to him for leadership and what Brexiteers wanted. He said over and over and over again, we can basically have our cake and eat it. We can be part of the single market, which, by the way, Margaret Thatcher created. No. He said we can be part of the single market, but we can stop freedom of movement. I so happen to believe that you actually could have your cake and eat it on that one. What you can't do, which was revealed in the Conservative Party conference yesterday, is you can't say British exporters should have untrammelled access to the single market, we should be part of the single market, but we won't obey the rules of the single market. That's the fundamental contradiction here, but that's the problem. But that's a problem of the Conservative Party's own making. But the voters were told that you could square the circle.
The voters were also told that we'd have a profound and immediate economic impact. I think that was the Chancellor.
I think a lot of this is very patronising to the people that voted for Brexit. I think they're very clear on what they wanted, as I said, which was to leave the EU. And as I said and wrote at the time, it was as much a vote against politicians and, as they saw it, the metropolitan elite who were no longer listening to them.
So what?
But then what you've just said is very patronising. That's part of the problem, because you said people didn't know what they were voting for.
No, I didn't say that. I said people voted for different reasons. And I said that a lot of them voted for things that they now see are not happening. And I mean,
same with any government. They voted for Tony Blair in '97. They didn't get everything
Tony
they expected.
Blair had a manifesto on what she thought.
I don't remember tuition fees being in the manifesto in '97.
Hold on a sec. We have to have it as a four-way discussion.
As I was saying, a lot of it was against the vote against Westminster and how they saw it. These politicians that weren't listening to them, engaging in hyperbole, not listening to the view of the people.
What happens now?
And what they've done is they've voted for something, and what they now want is a Prime Minister in a very measured... Yeah, but in a very measured way,
Right.
not in a I'm going to give this
But Jane, I
headline
agree with
to
all of
this
that.
journalist kind of way.
I agree with all of that. I agree that, that is a big motive why people voted against. And I agree with you, it's much better to have a Prime Minister who takes things sort of methodically than not. But I'm afraid the big elephant in the room now is that you've won, right? Brexit has won. Right, so you're now the establishment. I know you was like ranting against it. You are now in charge. So you now have to tell us what you meant by Brexit, because people voted for you. You've won, and with the victors,
she's starting to do that.
She's already, hold on 1 second, Alistair. She's already effectively said that she's going out of the single market.
Yeah, she has.
So let's just focus on that for a moment.
She has.
How bothered are all four of you about, you know, some people say that is going to cost a great deal of
I'm massively
jobs and
bothered
everything
by
else. Other people say, well, you can go to WTO tariffs. If you look at WTO tariffs, they seem to me to be extraordinarily complicated, partly because there are European-wide quotas and everything else. How worried or not are all four of you about us going out of the single market?
With all due respect,
Julia,
your
maybe you
big
first.
worry is
Yeah.
you're not going to be an EU commissioner now, which was always the big plan to return to Europe. With all due respect,
I thought he turned that down.
Yeah,
Actually,
really.
It's not true. Can I explain why I'm bothered by it? So the single market, created by Margaret Thatcher, no less, and actually by a Labour commissioner at the time, Lord Cofield, it had one brilliant insight, and it said that modern trade wasn't about tariffs and taxes and levies. It was about what they call in the jargon non-tariff barriers, the standards for your electric plug, the colorant pigments in your plastic bath tub, all the little techie stuff. And they basically, what Margaret Thatcher said, it's better to have one rule rather than have 28 different ones across Europe. That's what she created. If you pull out of that...
Didn't sort out the plugs, though.
Well, she didn't have plugs, but all right, we'll still have three-point plugs. OK, but you know what I mean? Well, exactly. It shows that you can still retain some of your national
You're
characters.
arguing against yourself, Nick.
The point I'm trying to make is that in the modern world, when tariffs actually don't matter anymore, I mean, I know Liam Fox keeps going on about tariffs, it's all these fiddly rules, and we're now going to have to face all those fiddly rules at our border when we export into... And so here's the great irony. We were told red tape would be reduced by leaving the European Union. It's going to be dramatically increased.
We don't have the
And that's
same
what's
rules.
going
Okay,
to...
can I just want to, Jane and Julia, I just want to, before I come to Alistair, are you bothered? Now we look like we are at this point. We're probably going out of the single market, and that seems to be the message. Are you bothered by that, or are you reasonably happy that we'll do better than some people say?
I have faith in I just sort of think to myself, nobody actually knows whether it's going to be better or worse, and I think that now we've made this decision, we have to get on with it and have faith. And I do sort of think, I look at countries like Germany. Are Germany seriously going to stop trading with the UK? It's not going to happen. They make millions here.
Not stop, but they will make sure they cannot do otherwise. They will have to control stuff that's going from our country to Munich or...
But what we're having now is we will have the German trade, but we'll also have China, India, Australia and all the other countries.
Let's bring Julia to the question asked. You say we trade with the rest of the world. Yes, we do, but you talk to businessmen and women who trade in China and India and they'll say that it comes with... I mean, just to do business in India, you need... often many hundred permits, just to take one tiny thing. But on the single market itself, are you bothered that if we leave, or relatively relaxed?
No, I am delighted. It enables us to actually do trade deals with the rest of the world, which is because the EU is incapable of doing trade deals. We were told by the Remain campaigners, oh, it took 9 years and we haven't even got a trade deal with Canada. This is how long it takes. No, that's an indictment of how terrible the EU is at negotiating. We will negotiate stuff that benefits us. And you know what? If we have no trade deals, we'll still be able to trade, because the EU is not a free trade area. It's a free trade area in a customs bloc. It's actually a barrier to trade. Free trade is what benefits the world.
Alistair, are you bothered? I mean, do you sign up to the view that leaving the single market is going to cost a lot of jobs?
Definitely. And I mean, I think, you know, one of the worst things that happened during the entire campaign, and Michael Gove was largely responsible for this kind of demonisation of people who know what they're talking about, experts. If you talk to people who are the vast majority of business opinion, there's a reason why they're saying what they're saying. Because they know that their businesses benefit from us being in the single market.
A lot of what they said has not come to pass at all.
You saw recently. You saw it hasn't happened yet. You saw recently with Nissan. You saw recently with Nissan in Sunderland, making the point that they invest here because of the access it gives them to the single market. And look, yes, it's true. Of course, Germany wants to trade with everywhere in the world, but we're going to have to negotiate 53 bilateral trade deals with countries we now do it through the European Union. It does take an average of 6 years. They're incredibly complicated. We've got 30 trade experts, trade negotiators. Canada alone has 300. It is really complicated
So we'll
stuff.
train people up.
Wait a minute.
I appreciate
what really annoys me,
a lot of experts didn't predict, or no experts predicted the recession. Nobody can
They didn't bring the
predict
crowd.
whether
hasn't
this...
Alistair's got to the bit that really annoys him, and we know that's only one thing, so I think we should...
No,
we
I'll
should
tell you what annoys me is that I can always try to see another side of an argument. What's happened since the vote is that the propagandists who helped make Brexit happen now have to pretend that there are no dangerous consequences. There are massive consequences to what's happened.
Okay, well, I
But
just
is
want
the alternative to just stay with the status quo?
No,
Because
because as Julia said, the status
because we're
quo-
scared to
No.
do anything.
There was no status quo. It was always going to change.
Okay.
The
Can I-
main thing
I
is
just
we're
wanna
supposed to all be on the same side now. It's in everyone's interest,
But
however
Jenny,
you voted, that we
exactly.
get a
and
good
if we're
deal.
gonna be on the same side and make a success of this, everybody wants the best for our country. Let's at least not do it on completely
Exactly.
false
Utterly
pretenses.
false
I think,
pretenses.
unlike
Okay.
anyone in politics, actually negotiated international trade agreements in a previous incarnation. The idea that the Chinese are going to give a country of 60 million a better trade deal
Exactly.
than the one that we extracted when we were part of a bloc of 500 million is
It's a
complete
fantasy.
fantasy. So yes, we're going to leave the European Union, but let's not do it on these false
Let's see.
pretenses.
But an interesting thing about this discussion is to watch you and Alistair here aren't making the same argument. Now, I want to segue on from that a bit and say, look, what is happening at politics, a lot of people are observing, is there's this big hole in the centre of politics that no longer seems to be being filled. Is there the opportunity for a new party to emerge or a new alliance of some kind, all four of you, in the centre of politics? Alistair, maybe you first.
I don't think the Labour Party is going to split. I don't want the Labour Party to split, because if it split at the moment, then it would be utterly in the hands of the Corbyn left. And I don't think that's a good thing for the Labour Party, and I don't think it's a good thing for the country. People have to fight back. And yes, unity, but it has to be unity with a purpose around things that people want to see happen in the country. And the thing I find, I'm almost in despair at the moment, is that you see the Labour Party conference, Jeremy Corbyn's sort of, yes, he won, fair enough, he won and he won fair and square. And then I travel around the country a lot, and the most common thing that people come up to me and say is, what's happening? What is happening? We don't have an opposition. And that's really, really dangerous. It's particularly dangerous now.
So why would they not split then? Explain to me why you think that they should, not do new Labour or whatever.
Well, I'll tell you several reasons. The first is that the SDP history is not a great one.
Although that was a very small number of MPs.
Well, wait a minute,
arguably.
but they were, if you like, political giants.
Yes, they were.
In their own time, and partly it's our electoral system, to be honest. I think that and Jeremy Corbyn has the Labour brand, and the Labour brand may seem tarnished right now, but it's a very, very important part of our politics. Now, Nick was saying earlier that something is bound to emerge, but I don't at the moment see how it's going to happen.
Nick, what you think that something is?
Actually, that's the bit I find very difficult. No, that's the very difficult thing. I can't stare at a crystal ball and tell you it's going to happen like this ABC. But will something give? Well, it kind of has to, because the pendulum in our democracy's got much more stuck than I think people appreciate. You've got a Prime Minister with no mandate of her own, no one voted for her, foisting new policies on the country like selection schools, which no one else...
To be fair, we know this. No, but I just want to... I get that, yeah, but what I want to know is I want to force you a little bit, if you don't mind, on what you think is going to happen. Because we can all see that, the Labour Party has moved to the left.
I think it's funny enough tied to our earlier conversation. I think if the government... gets beyond the sort of platitudes which it's stuck on now on Brexit, actually delivers a sensible Brexit, does it in the way that Jane hopes, the economy's not too damaged, then I think clearly the Conservatives are on to winning the next election. Then the Labour Party will have to lose it and maybe come to their senses. If, however, the government makes a hash of it, and at the moment all the signs are they will, because they have absolutely no clue what to do. If the economy, unfortunately, turns sours a bit more, I think there'll be a real appetite in the country for politicians of different parties to work together again, like a sort of government of national unity, to sort out... Well, I avoided that. But I think something will give.
We need to go through it. Okay, briefly, Julia, can I ask you, do you think that would work?
I
A
don't
new
know.
brand, a new party?
I can't. That's not the message I'm getting from the moderate MPs. But I do think the terrible situation we're in now is that whether one likes the government or not, the government in a democracy relies on there being a government in waiting, an alternative, an opposition, and we haven't got that at the moment, and that is very, very bad for the government and for Britain.
Okay.
I've been getting away with it all my